Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reading Between the Lines. I'm Sarah, and I'm joined today by my brother, Ahren.
Hello.
Ahren, how are you?
I am excellent. It is a beautiful day in Ireland. We've had a stretch of like 9 days without sun. Like it even made the news. So the fact that I could get laundry dried in 3 loads out on the line today, I'm like, yay.
That's right. They don't do dryers over there like we
No.
have here.
When mom and dad and I took our first trip to Ireland in 2001, we were staying at like a B&B in Kinsale or something. And it was a gray, murky day. And the lady had her laundry out on the line. And my dad, our dad said something like, well, you're optimistic. And she says, oh, I think there's drying in the day. And, I thought that was, oh, how quaint, but now that I live here, it's like, oh, there's drying in the day.
Absolutely.
I'm really chuffed when it's like sunny out.
Ahren and I have both been sick. I've been more recently sick. And so this whole season has been really crummy for podcast recording. Anyway, we're going to get through it though. So what's our theme for today, Ahren?
Our freshest reads, what we've been reading this last month.
Yeah, just what we've been doing. We were just chatting a second ago about an upcoming theme of reading books or talking about books with the theme of being based in a hotel, which I'm so excited about. So stay tuned for that.
I've enjoyed that movie, The Grand Hotel Budapest. And, I think
Yes.
everybody loves that because there's like a soul to the hotel. Like the hotel is a character itself, and everybody wants to kind of experience that environment. And whether it's in a book or in that kind of a movie, it's kind of, a fantastic world where anything can happen and there's all kinds of amazing characters.
Yeah. Have you seen Asteroid City by the same director, Wes Anderson?
Oh,
did you freeze?
No,
you're there.
Is that?
No, you have.
That's not the one where they're out in the middle of like Arizona or something, and there's a bunch of Boy Scouts, and they're going to some crater. Is that it? I think I saw that. It was very artistic.
It was, and the main characters are staying at a motel, which kind of counts. Anyway, I love Wes Anderson.
I agree, and they're all like little, funky motel teepees or something, aren't they?
Kind of, yeah. Very, what is it? Very 50s, very,
It's kind of kitschy, kind of
late 40s, yeah.
Sure. No, but they've captured that era very well. That kind of cosmic nuclear, atomic era, I guess is what they call it. So.
Cool. Okay, so let's jump into what we've been reading. I'll have you start first, and then we'll just take turns.
Sure. Okay. I hope you don't mind. I'm reading my pad that I wrote my thing on. Okay. So the first book that I went through, and you can count it as reading if you listen to it on the bus on Audible, right?
Completely. Yes.
Yeah, audiobooks count. Audiobooks count. Okay, good. Well, I did, I have a morning commute on the bus, and it's fantastic Audible. I really enjoy, being able to listen to books and not hearing people behind me on their, mobile phones having their loud personal conversations. So I enjoyed up until a point an Agatha Christie book called The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. And for some reason, I have to read that title. Whenever I try to explain, I think it's The Murder of Dan Aykroyd. And, it's like the Ghostbusters guy.
I love Dan Aykroyd, of course. But
But, I wish him well, sir. Yeah. So The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, published first by William Collins Sons in 1926. So the main character, well, it's not... is Hercule Poirot the main character, or is Dr. Shepherd the main character? Because the story is told from the perspective of Dr. James Shepherd.
James would be.
Yeah. And so it's most of the Poirot stories, like the fantastic ones on TV with David Suchet playing Hercule Poirot. There was his assistant was Colonel Hastings. And, Hastings was this upright sort of British gentleman who was, helpful and kind of the straight man for quirky little Hercule Poirot, the funny Belgian. So anyway, this guy, James Shepherd, and even Poirot in this book says, oh, you're just a perfect surrogate for my associate, Mr. Hastings. So anyway, Dr. James Shepherd and his sister Caroline live in a quaint English town called King's Abbot. And I think it's actually a real town too that she placed this in. There seem to be a lot of characters introduced, and much local gossip and intrigue are told to the reader before things get interesting. So Roger Ackroyd lives in a grand estate. He's apparently the wealthiest guy in town and has, of course, an ill-behaving cad of a son who's always getting into scrapes and needing to beg money off of dad. And so there's a lot of local intrigue with various characters having romances with each other. And so she sets it up to be like, okay, there's a lot of little earworms that are getting in there to kind of make the minefield of how are you going to navigate whodunit. So she sets up a lot of things in the beginning with gossipy intrigue and relationship, interdynamics. So on the one hand, it's like, oh God, there's a lot of characters. Who is this person again? And I think it also helps if you're into that kind of stuff, you can remember all these people. I think she's sorry, go ahead.
With the audio version, did the narrator attempt to do any voices? Was it easier that way to understand who's who?
Yes. Yeah. The narrator was a man who was in the original The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV program on the BBC. And he played Arthur Dent, and his I think his last name is Simon. I'll find his name. He was fantastic as a narrator. He did even female characters really well. So he did voices like an audio.
That helps me when there's a big cast. If I can listen to it.
And the voices change, and you're not just kind of like lost. Like and Christie kind of she's pushing the limit of, okay, how many characters can the audience tolerate before they get confused? And my level is really low for that. I get confused-related really easy by too many characters. What, 5 characters? I'm screwed. So
I keep interrupting you, but did you see that meme I sent you on Instagram of like that dude reading a book about, it was like fantasy names?
Yes. Yeah. That was
and
good.
He was like, I don't know who this character is. I only can reference them by the shape of the word. I don't know what the name is.
Oh, that's funny. If you've ever read The Ladies' #1 Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith.
Yes.
I actually saw him speak at a book signing at Kepler's bookstore in Menlo Park before I ever read his books. And the characters are like Mama Cootsie and Mama Ootsie or something like that. And he pronounces the names, and it's like, oh, okay. But when you read them, it's just all letters. It's like, oh my God. And so I can't imagine anybody reading that book without hearing him first say the names.
Yeah.
So I had a tremendous advantage by hearing the author say the funny names during a book signing first before reading his book. But yeah, so it's odd when they screw up names too that are just like sci-fi or fantasy. Anyway, okay. So ill-behaving cat of a son who's always getting into scrapes and needing to beg money off his dad. So the doctor is summoned when Mr. Ackroyd is found dead, just after the doctor had arrived home from a visit with him. So there seems to be a locked room murder, with Mr. Ackroyd having been killed by being stabbed in the back about an hour after the doctor arrives home from his visit with him. And, of course, the Dr. James Shepherd, he's with his sister Caroline, and they're talking about his visit, because she wants all the gossip in the world. And then he gets a phone call, and it's like, oh my gosh, can you come back? He's been murdered. And, the room is locked, and the guy has a knife in his back, and he's pretty dead. And oh my gosh, what do we do? So there's a relative living there. Her name is Flora, and she's a family member, and she insists that Dr. Shepherd accompany her to the new next door neighbor, a funny little Belgian man who has a reputation for solving crimes. And this man is, of course, Hercule Poirot. And but the book is told from the perspective of Dr. James Shepherd. It's a little bit like the Sherlock Holmes, stories being told from the perspective of Watson. So anyway, the upshot is some people say this is the best Agatha Christie book that, ever, like that she's ever written. And others say it is the worst.
I feel like I have read this and I don't think I enjoyed it very much.
There is a twist ending that some people find it difficult, or they find it cheating or off-putting, myself included. I did not appreciate the ending. So while I enjoyed 95% of the book, the way it ended really ruined it for me. So when the murderer is revealed, you feel kind of cheated. And I don't want to get into any more description because it would be giving it away. So like I said, some people really like this and they find it is fantastic and they enjoyed the twist.
Twist, if you know what the twist is, and I won't say what it is, but this, I wonder if the twist is a very popular genre now that I think a lot of authors are doing. And I wonder if this was kind of a new concept at the time that this was written. I'm not sure.
That's a really good point. And, you see other things and it's like, oh, these new works are a derivative of this original. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this was the original twist ending or what it was, but she was remarkable for introducing, like when we saw The Mousetrap in London, it was like the ending of that. I just blown away. I'm like, whoa, so it was, and it's that surprise, which is really refreshing. It's like a roller coaster ride and then reaching the end and going, oh crap, I want to do that again. So sometimes it can be really fun.
That says a lot because you were in the Mousetrap play like 100,000 years ago in high school. So it wasn't like, it wasn't a new plot for you.
No, it wasn't. It was, and that's really funny. I had done it, and I had in high school, but I didn't see all of the thing because I was a stagehand, so I was working behind, and I never really watched the entire play because I was in the background doing stuff with lighting and moving sets around. So I never really understood the ending. I was in it though, because I was a stagehand. They also said, okay, when the lights go out, you wear this costume and you come out and you stab the guy. And
you were in it. I remember being 7 years old and that was the best part. My brother got to stab somebody.
So in your typical brother form, he was in it, but he didn't know, and he did it, but he didn't know who'd done it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
That's kind of the way my mind works. I participated in something and then later I'm like, what? Did I do that?
You were the bad guy, dude.
I was there. Okay. Oh yeah. I was that thing. Yeah. So welcome to my work.
Okay. Does that wrap up that book with Mr. Ackroyd?
Yeah.
All right.
And what's interesting is I got it because it was inexpensive and it included 5 Agatha Christie books for the price of 1.
In the audio recording or
the audio. So there's 4 more read by this fantastic guy.
Yeah. I recently downloaded a 30-hour long PG Woodhouse.
Yeah.
Not a Jeeves and Wooster one, but a different storyline of characters in the same world. And they're so boring and they're not my jam.
Oh, too bad.
So now I've got 30 hours of this that I'm never going to listen to. So, yay.
Wow. C'est la vie. Okay. What's your book?
I listened to, as well, an audiobook. And my quest this year is to read more. I have to come up with a better word. I'm not sure this is an actual term, but modern classic modern authors. And so one of them that was suggested was Ian McEwan. And this was a book called Saturday, which I forgot to write down when this was written. I think this was written in the early, maybe 2010. However, it takes place in the early 2000s. Anyway, this is a book about a neurosurgeon named Henry, and this is a day in his life, and boy, is it a day. He enjoys life immensely. He considers himself to be really fortunate that he's in love with the woman he's married to. So he loves his wife, and he lives in London, and he has a nice little flat. And the entire day is just spent looking through the lens of a neurosurgeon. which I
Oh,
think is a fantastic topic.
sure.
The day itself starts out with a crowd of Iraq protesters because that war is currently happening.
Hmm.
He has a minor automobile accident in which he literally bumps into someone who is suffering from a neurological disorder. And
Okay.
it is not discussed, but it is completely obvious to our main character, Henry, here. And basically what happens is this young man who has the neurological disorder decides to follow Henry home later in the day and then basically hold him hostage. And so the entire book is basically about how Henry is going to get himself out of this and
Okay.
navigate disarming this young man with the knowledge that he has as a doctor. And so what I really enjoyed about this book is that I want to say Ian. It's Ian.
Ian.
Ian
Yeah.
has a lovely way of, it's a very relaxed and calming way of writing. This is a
Okay.
book that you can put down and pick back up again. You're not going to be on the edge of your seat the entire time. But it's easy to come back to. And despite the subject matter of this being this is a very high stress day. And
Hmm.
it's a man who has a very high stress job.
Yeah.
It's such a relaxing book. It sounds so crazy to say that.
It's interesting. I've worked in
Yeah,
hospitals, and a lot of physicians, especially emergency room physicians, have this cool as a cucumber, calm and collected demeanor. Because, if you come in and you're all bleeding and crazy and they freak out, like that's not good for anybody. And so they have to be the rock of Gibraltar. You've come to the right place. We're going to help you. And they are the security. Their attitude has to be such that you feel like you will be taken care of and we're going to get through this.
100%.
Yeah.
What I enjoyed as well about this book is that the description of the medical descriptions,
Mm.
Henry does perform some surgeries. I want to say they're minor. They're not minor. They're he's doing brain surgery, but they're short descriptions within the book. And I found them to be so gross and icky and yucky and
Oh,
accurate. Um,
okay.
Gross, super gross. So
Hard
if
to
you're
get through.
squeamish,
Okay.
yeah, hard to get through.
Okay.
But I've also read several reviews about this book, and people really admire and applaud Ian's attempt at making sure that this was super accurate in terms of the medical description. So hats off to him for that.
Yeah. So he's not a doctor, but he got the world
No.
right. He got good advice. That's where you have
Yeah.
good beta readers. Like, if you write
Hmm.
a doctor story and then some doctor says we would never do that, that's you got to listen to that because otherwise it's going to
Yeah.
rip the reader's focus right out if they know anything about medicine, for example.
So while I would say that I enjoyed this book, I'm not eager, unfortunately, to go pick up another Ian McEwan book
Okay.
anytime soon, unfortunately.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
I've had the experience. So,
Sure, sure.
yeah.
I just looked it up here, so I don't know if you can see it. It's Simon Jones was the guy who was
Oh, I've heard of him as the narrator for your
yeah,
Agatha Christie
and
book. Yeah.
he played Arthur Dent in the first Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy BBC TV series, I think in the 80s. So, and he
I
was
am
he was a great narrator. I like his voice.
I wanted to tell you this and I forgot. So I'm
Hmm.
done talking about my book, but I
Okay.
want to go back to talking about your book in that I have a friend right now who is on a cruise on the Nile in
Oh,
Egypt,
wow. Yeah.
and she goes every year with her husband.
Okay.
And I said this out loud in front of a whole group of people, which was really stupid. And I'm going to say it now on the podcast, which was, that would be so fun. I wish that I could be on a cruise like that and, like an Agatha Christie novel, have somebody be murdered, but nobody I know or am close to, and then
Yeah.
have to figure out who did it. So,
Well, that's Death on the Nile.
yeah.
What's interesting is I just read that and at the same time listened to the audiobook. And the audiobook was narrated by David Suchet, who,
Yes. Oh,
he did his Hercule Poirot perfectly. And he read the 1931 version. And I read the recent Penguin version, I think, from
oh,
this year. And
Yeah.
I noticed I'm following along in the book while I'm listening to the audiobook, and some words were wrong.
They
And
removed some bad words.
they had woke washed it. So there was
Mm-hmm.
like a group of kids playing on the shore trying to, ham it up and get money from the tourists. And Agatha Christie says a group of Nubian boys in the
Uh-huh.
book. And then they woke washed it to a group of local children. It's like, really?
Interesting.
That's not so bad. I mean, I don't know. You're in Nubia. It's hello. I didn't find it, um, it didn't improve the book in any way. I don't know why they needed to do that. So I found the sanitizing of her original text more off-putting than the original text.
I had a thought about this. Oh, I wanted to say that I have seen the recent movie adaptation with Kenneth Branagh of Death on the Nile.
Mhm.
Gal Gadot is in it. I enjoyed it. Some other people have said that they have not enjoyed the movie. I have
Okay.
not seen the one from, I guess it was filmed in the 50s or 60s. And it's
Oh,
got a hell of a cast. I think Betty Davis is in it,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
uh, what's her name? Hang on, I have to look this up.
No, I think I might have started
Mia
watching it.
Farrow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got a really fantastic cast. I don't know, just the audio book with David Suchet. It's the original 1931
Yeah,
text. He's fantastic. I don't think you can go wrong if you just got the audiobook and you wanted to go through the David Suchet Death on the Nile. Do that version.
I think that's a good. Am I muted? No. Okay.
Well, I can hear
Been
you.
muting myself for
You're good.
coughing. The Death on the Nile movie I was referencing was from 1978, and get a load of this. It's got Mia
Yeah.
Farrow, Dame Maggie Smith,
Yeah.
Betty Davis,
Oh wow.
Angela Lansbury. I mean, come on,
It's got
Jane
everybody.
Birkin.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better than
It
that.
was
So,
probably a dream project for all of these actors too. They're like, "Oh my God, I can be in an Agatha Christie movie. Hell yeah!" Like
and
everybody would want to do that.
filmed on location,
Oh
unlike,
sure.
unfortunately, the new one with Kenneth
Mm,
Branagh was not.
mm.
Anyway, your turn. Next book.
Okay, let me see. What have I done? I think this was a book that you gave me, and it's the second book that I've read by this author. Here, I actually have it right here. It's called Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and it's
Adrian Tchaikovsky, as well as, I think, a modern classic author that we should be reading
okay.
for sci-fi.
Mm, um, okay. I
Unfortunately, you don't agree, and you'll share why.
How care why? Well, he's not bad. He's not like Douglas Adams would be my favorite sci-fi author, right? So what's interesting is it's the second book I've read by him. This book, Service Model, published by it was Tor. Tor is Macmillan Publishing in 2024. And the first book I read by him was called The Expert Systems Brother, and that was published by Tom Doherty Associates. Obviously it was like one of his first books, and that publisher is on Fifth Avenue in New York. And they published that in 2018. So I felt well, okay. So previously, I had read The Expert Systems Brother, and I didn't like it because I felt that it was unfinished. It was like a novella. It was only 90 pages. And when I
Oh,
got to the end, I thought, yeah, so where's the rest? Like, there needs to be another 90 more pages to finish the story. It's like, eh. So anyway, this book, Service Model, I read it while I was dreadfully sick with a bad cough. So I don't know if in any way my weird mind state was affected this, but I found the book to be dreadfully depressing. It's a post-apocalyptic book where everybody's dead except for a few people, and the world is decaying and going to crap. And it's just like, oh my God, what have we done to the planet? It was depressing. Um, so in a post-apocalyptic Britain, the book is told from the perspective of a service android named Charles. Charles is a valet in a big manor house. He unfortunately does a Sweeney Todd on the master of the house one morning while giving him a shave, and the house AI calls the constable and the doctor, And of course, they're not people anymore. It's the future, and robots show up.
Yeah.
And as the book progresses, you find that all of the robots are faulty. Like, how long has this been going on, that the world has been kind of flushed down the toilet? So, the constable robots show up. They're a little bit, quirky and sparky and stuff. And the valet confesses to the constable that he killed his master. And he says he must be faulty. I didn't mean to do it, he said. It just happened. And this is after the valet robot has dressed the murdered human and brought him down to the breakfast table and served him breakfast because he thought that would make him feel better.
Oh God, this is weird. This is
It's
really
very
weird.
sad. And so the constable robot says, no, you couldn't have murdered your master upstairs in the bathroom because, like you said, because he's obviously down here having breakfast. And then the constable goes into this loop of logic, and then sparks shoot out, and then his assistant has to kick him, and then he resets and he goes through the entire investigation again. And meanwhile, the house AI says, look, Charles, I'll open the front door for you. I think you need to go into town to central services and get some maintenance. So
yeah.
So meanwhile, the constable is, Sparky, and Charles like exits out the front door. And unfortunately, because he's no longer employed, he doesn't know what his name is anymore, because when he was employed, he was Charles. But now he's Uncharles, because except for the rest of the book, he calls himself Uncharles. Which is kind of sad. But anyway, so he goes there to Central Services Maintenance Factory, and he finds an incredibly long line of broken robots. The line hasn't moved in years, and he goes to the front of the line to see what's the holdup. And because he starts asking too many questions, he annoys the one left, the working service droid, who then says, well, you must be defective for asking so many dumb questions. You need to get in line for recycling. So this part of the maintenance facility, unfortunately, is working. And all of these dutiful robots are lining up to get into a car crusher and to be turned into bricks. So right before, poor old Charles, who's just doing his duty, steps into the car crusher, a robot who the description doesn't say this robot is the Mandalorian, but the robot looks like the Mandalorian.
Okay. Oh my God.
And so this robot comes and saves him. So this Mandalorian robot pushes him out of line, and then
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the service robots. It's a little bit like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he's in the asylum, and the big giant orderlies come to get him. They're like, hey, you're out of line, get in, get back. And so they're about to get him, and they've actually got his arm, and he's trying to pull away. And while that happens, suddenly all hell breaks loose, and this robot who helps him originally pushed him out of the way. She calls herself the Wonk, and suddenly all hell breaks loose because the factory is broken into by a group of these white knight robots who are destroying the factory, and they announce that we are from the library and we have come to punish you for your sins. And so I don't know if they're a religious organization or what they are. They're like white knight, crusaders, really. And then the Mandalorian robot who calls herself the Wonk, she says, it's the library. There are a group of robots who are trying to save information like books to help humanity rebuild civilization. I've been trying to find them. And the library, breaks everybody and all the bad guys. And then the Wonk and Uncharles now escape. And they're like, we want to come with you. And the library robots are all on these like giant mech horses, and they just go away too fast. And they're like, wait, we want to join you. And they just leave. And so the Wonk is like, well, heck, we need to find them because we need to rebuild humanity. And so the book kind of goes on where Uncharles and the Wonk are on this quest to kind of find out, how do we help, what happened? Nobody knows what happened to society. There aren't hardly any humans anymore. And if they do find some humans, and they're kind of like imprisoned in a museum, which is run by robots, which
Ew.
is
Oh God.
kind of sad. And so they're on this quest to meet up with the library and figure out what how do you help the world get back together. So I found the book was pretty funny, and it's also at the same time depressing and bleak. The author
Yeah.
goes into, and as a computer scientist, I appreciated this. The author goes into a lot of detail about the Android thought process, which is basically putting tasks into a to-do list, and they can only stop and rest when their list is empty. But anytime a task is blocked in the to-do list, they don't have the capacity to solve the problem and get unstuck. So that's why all of those robots were stuck in line. The one robot at the end was like, well, we need to service this robot, but it needs approval from somebody a human being at level 9 authority. And there are no level 9 authority human beings left. So that's why the line didn't move, because they didn't,
I see.
My next thing is to process this at level 9 and get approval, and it's still waiting for approval, and it's been waiting for approval and will forever. So that's okay. As a computer scientist, I can see kind of the humor in that, I guess, when stuff gets stuck. They're actually called zombie processes, by the way, or that's a race condition where two things are waiting for the same thing to unlock. And anyway, sorry, I won't get too technical, but the book was funny in some ways, and it was depressing in a lot of ways. At certain parts, I actually found myself skipping over paragraphs because I found the book too long. And so it was the exact opposite of The Expert System's Brother. I'm like, okay, come on, let's go. I wanted them to move the plot more.
This sounds to me like this would have been a great graphic novel.
Oh, maybe.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
It's very like action packed, and I can really picture everything that you're describing.
The Charles even becomes, or Uncharles becomes a general in a robot army at one point.
There's a lot
of action. So
well,
it's nice. There actually is an epilogue in the book, and where they talk about, okay, this is what happens after, which kind of tries to help with the depression a little bit, and it gives a little bit of hope, I guess. But like the book is 368 pages, and it could have really been maybe 268.
Or it could have been a comic. So.
Or it could have been a zine, a graphic novel. So I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that you like this author. I think other people like this author, and obviously, this is like a Tor book, and Tor.
We love Tor.
Only picks good authors. So maybe there could be something I'm missing.
I think you gave it your best shot, so I appreciate you reading it.
Well, sure, and actually, it was better than the previous book by him that I had read, and I did enjoy it. But it's kind of like post-apocalyptic stuff can be really depressing, because it reminds you of what we're doing to the planet and what we're doing to each other, and it's like, oh God, it's like watching the news too much, and you just kind of get depressed of it.
Have you read Children of Time by this author?
Have not. No.
That series is supposed to be super good, but I haven't read it. So who knows?
All right. Interesting.
Well, from one, I don't want to say that was a dismal book, but it wasn't one that you enjoyed.
No, it wasn't dismal. I don't know if I'd want to read another Adrian Tchaikovsky book.
See, that's kind of I feel ya. Okay. I read a book by Amy Tan, again on my quest of reading modern classic authors, and as a 13 and 14-year-old, I enjoyed Amy Tan. This was in the 90s, and I read Joy Luck Club, and I read Kitchen God's Wife, and all the other things. I think that I was having a phase then, as well, as you recall. I wanted to be a chef, and I enjoyed cooking, and I loved cooking shows and all the things. So I really enjoyed those books by Amy. Since then, Amy doesn't write as much about food anymore, and I don't really love these books as much.
Sure. It's almost like J.K. Rowling writing that one about Edinburgh, like whores or something, or call girls.
Yeah, she has like a detective series.
Yeah, and people were like, but there's no spells and magic and wands. And then, I don't know if that was as popular as, obviously not as popular as Harry Potter, but.
Well, and I have read those, or the first one of that series, and I actually enjoyed it. I liked it a lot, but it didn't hook me enough
Okay.
Considering the competition of, mysteries and detectives,
Oh yeah.
you got to really have a big hook. Otherwise, you're just another bit of fluff in the sea of mysteries.
Right.
Anyway, I read The Valley of Amazement, and this was a book that I wanted to throw at the wall, except that it was an audiobook. So there's that.
You're not going to throw
Um,
your Kindle at the wall or your
no,
iPad,
no.
right?
This book, very different than the one that you just explained about. This is a sweeping historical novel that spans generations and continents and explores the intricacies of identity and family and cultural displacement. So we're set primarily in the 20th century. We're set in 20th century Shanghai, and the story follows our main character, Violet. And we start out as a child, and then we get to adulthood with Violet. She is the daughter of an American woman who lives in Shanghai, who is a madam. So she runs a whorehouse. It's a very classy whorehouse, apparently. Long story short, because I hated this book. It was terrible for me. It was very much capturing the turbulence of the time, which I appreciate. However, this book was way too long. It was like a bad TV melodrama. I think it would have been better as a melodrama where you could kind of watch and see the opulence.
Yeah.
Not one of the characters was likable. Everybody experienced either death, misfortune, tragedy, or trauma in some horrible way.
Okay.
And the main character was super bitter and angry, and never really fully communicated to work out these problems with her mother. And so it was hard to watch this. It was hard to watch. It was hard to listen to. And eventually I DNF'd it about halfway through.
Wow. So also too long and depressing.
Too long, very depressing. And also just like a simple matter of some conversation and communication could have cleared up half of this bullshit.
Okay.
So
Right.
anyway.
But instead there's a long-lasting grudge between two characters
Right.
who can't.
I hate you. I can't talk to you. Or, and in some cases, they are just, they're physically in different continents and cannot speak. And so, you build up stories to yourself about why this person did this, that, and the other. And you start to believe that without actually talking to them. Anyway.
I think the detectives call that manufactured memory.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of that and a really dull plot. So
okay. Wow.
There we
Yeah, I remember how popular she was in the 90s too. What you described as an author going off on a tangent in a different genre, for some reason it popped into my head. What if George Lucas, Star Wars sci-fi dude, did a romance, like he directed a Jane Eyre novel or something?
Oh, that would be weird. I think Amy Tan always has that thread in her books about mother-daughter relationships.
Okay.
And I didn't mind that as much when I was 13, but in this case, I just didn't like these characters. I liked the characters in the previous books, but not this one.
Well, what's interesting? I was reading some, was it Philip K. Dick? One of these early sci-fi authors, and it turned out every single book was about drugs. I think it wasn't Philip K. Dick, it was somebody else. It's one of those same era. And there was actually a movie with Robert Downey Jr. and in it, and it was about druggies or something. And it was a movie based on a book by this author. And I thought, oh, okay, wow, this is an interesting story. And I started to read other stuff by him, and it's like every single book is about druggies and people with, addiction issues. And it's like, is he trying to work something out in his head? It's like Amy Tan, if every book is about mother and daughter relationships, it's like, okay, get some therapy and get over this.
Right. 100%. Like that's what her books are always about. So you have to expect that. What's your next book?
Okay. Well, this one, I thoroughly enjoy this author. In fact, in my review, I give him 7 out of 5 stars, 2 extra stars just for being awesome.
So did you actually like this book? Because we haven't really talked about many books that we've liked today.
Gosh, I sure did. I really
Good.
enjoyed this book. I have enjoyed every Neil Gaiman book that I've ever read. And I was in one of these, I think it was on Piccadilly. There's a really good bookstore down the street from Fortnum and Mason. And, you go in and it's, dark oak
Are you talking about London?
yeah, in London.
Okay.
And I went into one of these famous bookstores, and in the front they have all these books signed by authors, and I could have picked up like signed copies of books by Philip Pullman and Neil Gaiman, and I'm like, well, I'm on a budget, I don't want to spend 30 quid. And I should have.
Right.
I'm kicking myself for not picking up those first
Yeah.
edition signed hardbacks by these authors I really like. But anyway, so okay, Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, Headline Publishing Group UK, published in 2000. In the beginning of the book, there's sort of a foreword written by Neil Gaiman from 2005, and he says, this started as a BBC TV series, and he wrote the book while he was writing the episodes for television. So he says this book is a kind of a different version of what the TV show was, which is kind of neat, I guess. And I hadn't seen the TV show. I think the TV show was from 1996 through 2000, I'm guessing, from the copyrights in the book. And I haven't seen the TV show, and I'm glad I read the book first, because I went and looked up the TV show, and I saw the actors who had been cast in the various roles of the book. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have thought he looked like that. I just like totally different
Yeah.
image in my head. The actors that they chose were not what I thought they would be. It's almost like when you listen to the radio and then you see a picture of the DJ and you're like, that's not who I had pictured in my head with that voice.
Yeah.
It didn't fit. So anyway, I love this book. This book is from the perspective of a man named Richard Mayhew, who moves to London to become a stockbroker, and he's very successful at it. And he becomes well-to-do and has a nice apartment, and he's living in London, and he meets a girlfriend, and things get pretty serious. And her name is Jessica. And one night, Richard and Jessica are on their way to a very serious date where Jessica's, his fancy fiance, is on her way to meet her boss, for this dinner, who is about to give her a promotion in a big project that she's been assigned to. And, it's like, we can't miss this. This is like the most important, moment of my life. And, so they're walking along on the sidewalk going to the restaurant. And suddenly, out of a brick wall ahead, where he didn't think a door was before, a young woman like falls out of a door onto the sidewalk, and like the door wasn't there before, which is weird. And so she collapses on the pavement. She's disheveled. She's got blood on her. He's like, oh my God, she's hurt. And he wants to help her. And Jessica's like, just leave the street people alone. We need to get to this thing. And so they have this kind of argument where he's like, no, I have to help this human being. She needs help. And Jessica's like, I can't stand it that you're always getting distracted. And I need this, and I need you to be there for me. So she goes off and is really pissed off. She goes off to dinner, and she's fine. If you want to take care of this street urchin, go ahead. So the girl kind of wakes up, and she doesn't want the police. She doesn't want an ambulance. He takes her back to his apartment, which is, like a block that way, to help her get cleaned up. She takes a shower, and he gives her some clothes and stuff. And she says that her name is Dor, which he thinks is a little weird. And she says, well, how can I help you get home? And she says, oh, I can get home by myself. I just have to contact my people. And so she goes, this is where he begins to fall down the rabbit hole. She goes to the window, opens the window, and a crow appears. And she writes a note on and then attaches it to the crow's foot, and the crow flies off. And he's like,
that is so cool.
What did you just do? And she's like, well, I sent a message to my people. And he's like, okay. And will they call? Did you give them my phone number or something? She's like, oh no, we'll hear from them in a little bit. So, they sit by the fire, and she kind of has a cup of tea. And then 20 minutes later, the world's giantest, biggest rat pops out from behind his bookshelf. And Richard is like, ah! And then he picks up the book and throws it at the rat. And she's like, no, damn it, that's my friend. And then he's like, what? And so she makes him apologize to the rat. And the rat comes out, and the rat's like, jerk, okay, fine. And then rat gives her a note back, and he goes down the rabbit hole from there, where she gets picked up by, actually she goes into the bathroom, and she says, all right, well, thank you for helping me. And then he closes the door, and like he's like, what? And then he opens the door, and she's not there. So she's disappeared now from his house. And then now weird things start to happen to him.
It's very Alice in Wonderland. I like it.
You know what? I will tell you. So this book is about a secret world that exists under London, and it's filled with magical creatures that the above grounders cannot see. So Neverwhere is the underground of London, sort of where the mythical and unseen creatures are. Well, they really are unseen because they can walk around the above ground and people do not see them. They just ignore them. And so unfortunately, Richard, he gets kind of ignored too. And so that Neil Gaiman was in a interview. He was being interviewed about this book, and he said he actually wanted to write a kind of modern Alice in Wonderland for adults. And so that's interesting that you would say that, because that's what his intention was. So he goes to work the next day, and they've moved his desk, and his office mates don't seem to recognize him even when he goes up and talks to them. And then he's like, kind of like shaking his friend, and the friend kind of wakes up and goes, oh, Richard, it's you. Hi. Oh, wait, excuse me, I got a phone call. And he picks up the phone, and then Richard's out of his memory again.
Wow.
So he somehow finds Dor again, and she apologizes to him, and she says, I'm really sorry. You shouldn't have helped me, because once you helped me, you've become part of the underworld, and you've become kind of one of us, and the people in the above world can't see you anymore. And so now he has to, like, how am I going to survive this? And so he's become a part of the, it's like he's gone into the hill in the fairy realm, and if he comes back out to the real world, the real worlders can't see him anymore. So that's talk about peril. He's got to figure out, okay, what do I do? I've gone down the rabbit hole, but I can't come out again.
I really want to read this now. I am so intrigued. I just checked my Audible credits, and I get one tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. I'll buy it tomorrow.
Can I give you this book on Audible? Can you gift a book to somebody on Audible?
I think you can gift credits, but I'm not sure. I think, well, you can share a library.
Oh, can I?
I think so, because we're in the same family.
Yeah, I'll either share this book with you or buy it for you, because I think you'd love it. There's a pair of nasty bads who are trying to get Dor, and Richard is kind of a white knight and wants to help her. And these two baddies, oh boy, they're kind of like, are they evil demons? What are they? They're like super strong, and they're kind of like big mob enforcer types, and they're kind of wearing suits, but they're like Victorian era suits. And if you look closely, they've got holes in them, and they're ripped and stuff. And one guy's standing next to a fountain and having a chat with somebody who's about to get roughed up. And the bad guy, reaches into the fountain and casually bites the head off a frog and munches on it.
God.
So they eat weird. They like somebody eats a rat, they're these bad guys. It's like they're not human. They are monsters, And
I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Did you have the hard copy? Did you show us how did you read this? Sorry.
How did I read that? Sorry.
On your Kindle.
Yeah, it's on my Kindle, Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman.
Oh my God, that's a much better cover. The one that I'm looking at on Audible is way different, simplistic. It looks like a meditation.
Mom always wants me to get her books. Yeah. No, Mom always wants books from the UK version, because the UK ones have better covers.
100%.
No, she's right.
Yeah. Hands down. And
the American.
The Audible version that I'm looking at, Neil actually narrates it.
Oh,
so that's
I love
cool.
It when the author narrates their own book. Yeah. Anyway, I gave this book 7 stars out of 5. I read American Gods previously and was blown away by that. He's so inventive and so creative. I wish I could write like him. Like he his fantasy creations are really good. You know, the author who did the Odd Thomas series, Dean Koontz. Like, I wish
Yeah.
I could write like Dean Koontz too. Both Neil Gaiman and Dean Koontz, they have pacing really well down. Like, plot is a verb. You know, your story should move, and there needs to be peril in the book. Like, this definitely had peril, and the bad guys were like, I don't know if the protagonist can really beat the bad guys. It was
Love
pretty.
that.
It was that good. So
Wow.
yeah, I enjoyed that, and I kind of wish. I hope there's more Nevermore books because I want there to be more. Who
I
knows?
don't know. I don't think there
I'll
will
have
be,
to.
because
I
if
need to look it up.
he wrote this was released in, well, never mind.
2000,
It doesn't. Yeah.
2000.
Yeah. So who knows if there will be more. And I also love that you said that this started out actually as a like TV plot first and then
Yeah,
became a book. That's
yeah.
interesting. Usually, of
He
course.
wrote he wrote the book and talked to his publisher and his editor as he was doing episodes. And sometimes they'd cut something out and he'd be like, no, I will murder you if you say no, I can't have this happen. And so he's like, this needs to be in there. And he was so adamant like about how he wanted the book to be. And they were like, fine, 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 we can do that. But you know, it was interesting because the people, I think his editor was trying to make the book form up and line up with the TV series. And he's like, no, if this is going to be a book, I want it to be this way. And so that's why in his intro, he says, you know, if you've watched the TV series, I think you'll enjoy this book because it's different.
Go ahead.
So,
That's great. I want to read that. He's on my modern classic authors to read, so I will be doing that. Cool.
yeah,
I love that.
It's good. I've enjoyed the two books I've read by him so far. So
My book is similar in that it's a fantasy, or that it's like it's very heartwarming, suspenseful, and there's an element of fantasy. So Tor sent me this one, which was very,
awesome.
very cool. Great
I
cover.
I like the cover. Yeah.
It's kind of actually like when you look at it closer, it's like it's like one of those I Spy books, meaning like it's like paper cutouts. It's like it's not CG. It's
Oh,
like
fun. Well, it's like South Park, like, you know, the
kind of,
construction
yeah,
paper.
construction paper. Yeah.
That's fun.
This
Collage.
is,
They call that collage. I don't know.
yeah, basically.
Okay.
This is Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune, and this is newly released. And TJ Klune typically, you know, he's a queer author, so there's usually elements of that in his novels, as well as kind of a melancholy aspect throughout. I have to cough. Hang on a second.
Have you ever read David Sedaris? Speaking of queer authors,
No.
oh my God, I saw David Sedaris at a book signing once. That man is bloody hilarious. I think he travels like as a gay man to some kind of event held at a Mormon church campus. And yeah, I don't think they're cotton to that kind of lifestyle. And you know, just hilarity ensues. He puts himself into these like kind of, you know, it's not going to go well situations. His books are famously funny. So
I'll have to listen to him as
David
well.
Sedaris, yeah, he's good. He's good. So
So
go ahead.
it's okay. With Bones Beneath My Skin, this is a story that follows Nate Cartwright, and he is a man who has really lost his sense of purpose. He's kind of just in flux. Nothing's really going right in his life whatsoever. Lots of personal setbacks, and he decides to just kind of restart. So he moves to a super small town, and he unexpectedly encounters a mysterious young girl named Artemis, and she has a guardian named Alex. So Artemis and Alex, this is not a spoiler. They are both aliens, and Nate becomes entangled into their world, and he discovers that Artemis especially has some very, she's a child, by the way, while Alex is not. And because she's a child, Nate does feel sympathetic toward trying to help her. She's got incredible powers, and the government, of course, is looking into they're suspicious of her and eventually want to track her down. And this becomes like a road trip where they're trying to escape the government.
There's
The
a
three
movie
these
about this. It's like some little boy that has powers from aliens, and they want to pick him up, and the government wants to get him. It was
Yeah.
recently too, but if you remember that,
I don't know what that is, but that sounds really familiar.
yeah. Sorry for interrupting, but yeah,
It's all right.
it's like ringing a really big bell for a movie I saw a couple of years ago.
This is a nice story in that all of TJ Klune's, I mean, not all, but mostly his books have a found family
Okay.
trope or theme, which a lot of people really like. And it's also a lot of self-discovery in these books. And this was really a lovely book about themes of identity and sacrifice, things that you would do for the people that you love and the power of love. And then reminding readers that family is not always defined by blood, but certainly by the bonds we choose to nurture, which was lovely. So again, a little bit melancholy. I don't want to spoil anything, but a lovely book. And I really highly recommend it for people who have not picked up a TJ Klune book to check this one out.
Tell me about were the characters, diverse and quirky, and they all sort of fit together like a family would, and
absolutely. Yeah, everybody's got their own little quirks and setbacks. Artemis as well, being a child, there's that's kind of a fun element. There's a lot of curiosity and wonder and also confusion about the state of the world, and especially because she's an alien, not on her own planet. There's a lot of interesting, there's some humor wrapped up in this, and I really enjoy. So one of his first books that he wrote, which was, I believe it's The House by the Cerulean Sea, is a premise about a gentleman who kind of comes upon a home that is for wayward children, and there's a caretaker as well, and there's a nanny, and there's the found family elements, but each of these children are magical in their own way. One little girl is a dwarf, one is the Antichrist, but he's actually just he's a nice kid despite all of that. Anyway, so TJ's books really do have a lot of fantasy in them as well, but also magical realism.
Speaking of magical realism and found family, have you read the book Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children?
Yes, I didn't like that one as much as you did. However,
I loved it. I read, there's like 3 of them, and and Terrence Stamp was in the movie as his grandpa.
Oh, cool. Yes.
I love Terrence Stamp because he was in this 1976 Superman movie, Kneel Before Zod. He was General Zod. Oh, he's such a great actor.
Oh, I remember that. He's really good. I would say that book would be good for you. The House by the Cerulean Sea would be good for you to read, because I think it is very heartwarming. There is a homosexual relationship in it, but it's very light and in the background. And the children are.
I don't mind that kind of stuff if it's presented like it's a normal thing. I read a sci-fi book recently where the author would stop the plot to remind you that the protagonist was a lesbian and a woman of color, and it's like, I kind of got that already. You don't need to keep pounding me over the head with it. So it's kind of like, I don't mind if there's some wokeness, and I'm not against that. But if the author's like beating you over the head with the woke baton, it's kind of like, okay, fine. It pulls the reader out of the story flow.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, that's why I've been lately kind of not wanting to read some of these cozy fantasy novels that I've been reading recently. Have they have sapphic romance in them, and some of them are just overly blatant. And I'm like, ugh, you know what? Great, I'm fine with this, but don't force feed it to me. Like, I don't need, this has nothing to do with the plot. Like, stop.
Timothy Baldry, the Legends and Lattes and Bookshops and Bone Dust.
It's a good example of not how he doesn't do
Yeah,
that.
it's part of the story, and then she has a relationship with she likes this girl who's a baker, who's this orc falls in love with a dwarven lady who's a surly baker, and
Exactly.
it's great, it's fine. It does, he doesn't beat you up. Yeah, it's treated like this is part of the story, not I need you to understand this lesson. Yeah,
Exactly.
Baldry treats it fine. It's
Just
like the
make it
way
be
it.
normal. Don't
Yeah,
make it
exactly.
weird.
It's normal in the Timothy Baldry books. Like, okay, this is fine, and he doesn't go into deep. Like, this is totally child friendly. Like, Eva could read this, and it's not like
Yes. Yeah.
there's no sexual scenes or anything.
I also would say that about the house on the Cerulean Sea is
Okay.
totally family friendly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we can start to wrap up the episode. I had a
Sure.
funny side note for you, but before
Okay.
I go there, I wanted to ask if there's anything else about our books today that you wanted to mention.
No, but I wanted to mention what I'm reading now.
Oh yeah.
It's a cozy mystery. Janie Bolitho. I think it was written around 2000, 2001, and I think she died the same year it was published. It was, I think, one of her last books. And she's written a lot of mysteries, like a dozen maybe, but I think people find this one the most popular. So
interesting.
it starts out in Penzance and the town of Mousel. The Cornish city names are so funny.
I went get I'm coughing.
What are you reading now?
I was getting up to show you, but I have to cough for a second. Oh my God.
No, go ahead. It's funny. It's very cozy because it's like these two ladies are getting their hair done and having coffee and doing their shopping and walking on the beach, and it's pretty descriptions of Cornwall, and so it's still cozy having tea yet in the first couple chapters before anybody gets knocked off. But
that sounds so nice. I could really go for that right now.
Yeah. When I'm done, I'll mail this to you. How about that?
Okay.
Sure.
Send me the book that I bought you that you didn't, the Adrian Tchaikovsky one too.
Oh, Service Model. You want me to send you that?
Yeah, because I would like to read it, but
sure, no problem. Okay.
Okay. I am about to read. I'll show it to everybody. You can't see this if you're listening, obviously, but this is X Marks the Spot by Gloria Cho. And I don't have to. I am very fortunate to be interviewing Gloria soon, and I'll need to figure out how to pronounce her last name properly.
Yeah.
And this is a really fun book. It takes place in Taiwan, and it is like a YA kind of romance, but it's also like it is like a treasure hunt kind of a story.
That's fun.
And the main characters do not like each other.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's like Rabbits was a treasure hunt,
Yeah, I do love that kind of book.
Well, that's good. That's a great way to hook your reader and make it a page turner, because you want them to find the thing, and you want to watch them struggle doing it.
Absolutely. I got one more book I just wanted to show real quick, which is You'd Look Better as a Ghost. And the lady on the cover here is holding a hammer that's dripping blood. Ooh. And this is by Joanna Wallace. And why did I pick this up? This is our main character is a part-time serial killer. So
have you read any of the Dexter books? Because I actually thought those were kind of funny.
I think this is in line with that. It's supposed to be like it's murder, but it's relatable.
Okay. I don't know. Very interesting. Well, I enjoyed that. Thank you for showing me what you've been reading.
Yeah, thank you. This was really super fun. And next time, I think, or maybe, I don't know if we can do it next time, if we'll be prepared enough, because I know that you have some books you need to read for it.
Yeah, I have to read them first.
The hotel theme, I'm really excited about. So
yeah, that would be great. We'll do that soon. So very good.
Oh, lastly, sorry. I'm all over the place today. Here's my little anecdote for you before you let everybody go. I'm looking over here at Eva behind me. Eva is 13. Eva, do you want to say hi? She's waving. There's a
Hi,
hand.
Eva.
Okay, she doesn't want to be
Great.
seen. She's
That's
in
all
her
right.
jams.
Yeah.
I was so in love with that horror book that I recommended in the wintertime, Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. And this
Okay.
is written from the perspective of was she like 8 or 9, Eva?
She was like 8.
8 years old, an 8-year-old girl who is being haunted by either a demon or a ghost. You never
Ooh.
really know.
Yeah.
And it's horror, but more suspense than anything else. Anyway, I loved this book so much that I was like, Eva, you got to read this.
Yeah.
Eva read it, didn't love it at
Oh.
all, but
Oh,
she's
that's
doing a
sad.
book report about it now.
Really?
So I
Well, she
applaud her.
likes creepy things, though. Creepy books.
You like creepy things, right?
Yeah, it was just like
Yeah.
really, it just got really boring.
It got boring, she said.
Oh,
So I think maybe slight, because she's 13. So maybe there are some adult themes. And I think that was what made it great for me, is that there's like what's not being said by this child and what is really going on. And maybe, no offense to you, Eva, but maybe Eva is too young for that. I don't know.
Okay.
It's like they would just be in there like in like the bedroom, and then it'd just be boring because they'd just be talking and talking and talking.
The little girl would talk to her demon.
Okay.
No, that's not it. Like when they were just like looking for someone.
Anyway, we'll leave it at that. I applaud Eva for reading this book that I recommended.
Sure. And like you and I had a couple that didn't gel with us, but that's you have to get exposed to all kinds of stuff, and the next book Eva reads might be her new favorite author. So
and then she can recommend it to me to read. So
sure. And then got to keep reading.
Absolutely. All right, friends, on that note, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.